the Pulse of Story podcast. My name is Derek Christopher. Of course, I am so thrilled to have the great Corey Mandell on the podcast today. Corey is a successful screenwriter. He's sold and written projects for Ridley Scott, Warner Brothers, Paramount, Disney, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck's company, countless people. He's an award-winning playwright. He's one of Hollywood's best consultants that people go to him, well-known writers, first-time writers. And Corey, welcome to the show for one.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
But I want to ask you something. So when you were a film student,
Yep.
you sold a pitch to Ridley Scott called Metropolis.
Yeah.
How did that happen? First of all, what was Metropolis and how did that whole pitch happen?
It was a noir thriller. And so what happened, how did it happen? What happened is I had written, when I was in film school, I'd written a script that I got signed by Diane Cairns at ICM. She's like a major agent. It was like a dream come true. She represented, Callie Corey, who won the Academy Award, and Milos Forman, and then little old me. I was on the very bottom of her roster. So she took my script out, and it was going to sell. It almost sold. It didn't sell. And I remember the time thinking, oh, what's wrong with me? I'm so unlucky. But then I realized that happens to almost everyone. Like so many scripts almost sell.
Yeah.
And right. So, but based on that, she says, well, do you have a pitch? So I said, let me work one up. I gave her the pitch and I'll never forget. So she's like, great, let's make a list of where we're going to go with this pitch. Like, do you have any ideas? And I said, yeah, I think it'd be great for Ridley Scott. I'd love to go to Ridley Scott. And she laughed very, very politely. And then she, in her own nice way, said, no, I meant places that could actually buy the pitch from you.
Yeah.
Because, Ridley's only working with Academy Award, I'm this nobody in film school. And then she thinks about it and she goes, I have a really great relationship there. I sold them Thelma and Louise. Let's start there. They're not going to buy it, but I know the people there and they'll give me really good feedback and we can see what's working and not working about the pitch and we can hone it before you go, to the places that might buy it. Well, funny thing happened. Ridley bought the pitch, actually bought it in the room, which was crazy. When I was done with the pitch, he's like, who else has heard this? And I said, you're the first one. Who else is hearing it? And I go, well, there's some places. And then he picked up the phone. He called my agent. This is what you dream of. And he said, what's it going to cost for me to take this pitch off the market?
Wow.
And so they made a deal while I was sitting there.
And you're still in film school at this time.
I'm taking class. I literally was at a class the night before and I had a class that night, although I don't know that I went to that class. But yeah, I'm still in film school.
So then you went on to I think you said for 11 years you were writing for the studios.
Yeah, that's right.
And then after that you started helping people with their scripts and whatnot. And then you got into more of the teaching aspect of it. And how did you make that shift? I mean, what was it that brought you to want to sort of parlay that knowledge?
So I was teaching from the beginning. So the year I was 23, the year after I graduated film school, UCLA asked if I wanted to teach in the writing program. And I said, yeah, sure. And that was surreal because I remember the first day I walked in a classroom. It's a classroom I had a class in not that long ago. I'm sitting there, everyone's looking at me and I'm like, why are you looking at me? And I go, oh yeah, I'm the teacher. It was very bizarre. So I was teaching at UCLA while I was writing professionally. And I got really frustrated because I felt like the way film schools, as I'm sure you know and your listeners know, what they do is they have a 10-week class and you come in and you have a concept and you get some workshopping and you do a little beat sheet and then you write the whole script. So they teach you how to go from concept to finished script in 10 weeks because that's like a professional deadline. You got to write to a deadline. The challenge though, I realized is if you're teaching someone how to write a script in 10 weeks, you can't really help them become a better writer very much because they got to just be focused on, it's a lot of writing and a lot of, just the process of getting a script done. And I felt like all these writers, and this was true of myself when I started out, they had certain inherent strengths, but they also had certain inherent weaknesses. And I'm we should slow this down and try to figure out a way before they write a script to just help them turn their weaknesses into strengths. Because if you don't do that, the more scripts you write, the higher the pile of similarly flawed scripts. And UCLA wasn't really down for me doing that. And
Right.
I mean, at the time I was frustrated, but now I realize, they had a brand to protect, and like,
Yeah.
I'm kind of this new teacher who wants to go rogue, and like, they don't know how it's going to turn out. So they're like, no, this is our program. Anyway, so during the writer strike in like 2007, I wasn't writing for a while. So I reached out to a bunch of people and I said, hey, I'm going to offer this thing where you come to my house once a week. You're going to pay me, and I'm going to try to teach you how to turn your weaknesses into strengths. I don't know if I can do this or not, but I have a
Yeah.
lot of ideas. And if you're willing to be my guinea pig, come on down. So I got 10 people to do it. One of them had to drop out for personal reasons. Of the nine, within 2 years, six of them had careers. They sold scripts or got hired on.
Wow.
And that's even more impressive because after the writer strike in 2008, 2009, that was when it was almost impossible to launch a career. That was a really tough time to be in the
Yeah.
writing game. So they, all their friends wanted to come and do this. And so I just got a lot more people. And then eventually agents and managers and producers started noticing, and they're like, we tend not to send people to the classes because they teach a lot of formula, but I don't know what you're doing, but it seems to make a difference. So those were sort of scaling up. And then my father passed away, and that's kind of a moment when I realized, oh, you don't live forever.
Yeah.
And I was really unhappy as a writer. I had a lot of fear, perfectionism, procrastination. I just had a very unhealthy relationship with writing.
Now, why would that be? Because your scenario it seems like it would be the dream scenario for most people. Like you right out of the
Yeah.
gate, you got Ridley Scott, then you're working for all the
Yeah.
studios, and then you
Yeah.
go, I'm not happy.
Yeah. Well, it would be the dream for a lot of people. For me, it was really tough because I was young and didn't know what I didn't know, kind of dumb. And I thought,
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of confidence, and I think my writing sucks. But man, if I could sell something, if I could get something made, if I then
Right.
then I'll know, then I'll have confidence, and then everything will be solved. And no, and I've seen this with a lot of the writers I've trained. If you're insecure and you don't have a healthy relationship with your writing, selling
Yeah.
something or getting hired just makes it worse. The pressure
Oh,
that
okay.
so actually, instead of making it better, it made it worse. And it was just
Sure.
I felt like writing was a place where it was like a battleground where I was fighting against my demons, and I
Right.
wasn't often winning. And teaching was a gift because teaching was this space where I could be my best me. I always felt like as a teacher, I'm the best version of me. So at some point, I just decided I'm writing at this point mainly just for money and ego,
Yeah.
and it's not worth it. And so I made a transition to teaching, and it was the best decision I ever made.
Well, and I think you approach it very differently. When you think about like McKee or Truby or Sid Field, they really sort of wrote books and taught about story architecture. That if you had, these external design acts, you had certain characters and these emotions and these moral conflicts, that somehow that was going to create a great script. Whereas I think you tend to approach it more from the writer's psychology. And I know you teach something called creative integration,
Yeah,
where you integrate sort of the writer's intuition and the craft.
yeah,
Now, I mean, so do you? And I saw something where you said that you think in the 80s and maybe into the 90s that it was great to have the paradigm. But now studios and production companies sort of look down upon just the simplicity of a three-act structure,
yeah,
or a certain uh, fill in the holes of how you're supposed
right.
to write a story.
Yeah, I mean, so there certainly still are movies and TV shows that are very paradigm driven, and the more successful ones aren't. But what I do is help writers go from a dream to how do you turn that dream into reality. And I'm friends with a lot of agents and managers, and
Yeah.
they are not going to sign a writer off of a paradigm driven script because let's say someone can nail all the rules and the, act breaks in this.
Yeah,
Nobody cares. Like, it's just not, look, it's not easy to do. Like, there's some level of, it's impressive if someone can actually follow the architect. But
yeah,
if you can follow the architect, get in line with all the other people that can. What they're looking for is a script that it's authentic. It's characters they've never seen. It's a story told in a way they've never seen. It's a story that gets under their skin and makes they can't stop thinking about it. It impacts on them. And they don't know if they can sell that script, but they know that that script is the script that's going to get that writer meetings. It's what they call a
easy. Yeah,
head turning script, right?
right.
So the script that I got my agent, that didn't sell, but that got me entree to pitching Metropolis to Ridley Scott. So there's I think a disconnect between people saying, oh, these successful movies and TV shows of 10, 20, 30 years ago followed this paradigm. I should do that. It gets people ignored. And that's people
Yeah,
sometimes get upset when I say that, but it's not me saying it. It's agents and managers I bring into my classes. I have students right now who are readers and they say that, for agents and managers, and they say, if you read like a paradigm driven script and give it to me for my weekend read, you better have a good resume because you're not helpful to me.
right.
And it's not that these scripts aren't necessarily impressive, but you think about it. You're, let's say, a manager and you have the writer, and what you need to do is get a lot of people in town who are so incredibly busy, who don't have enough time to read the scripts they have to read, who don't have
Yeah,
enough time to be with their wife and kids or husband and kids. And you're saying you got to get up an hour earlier to read the script. Trust me. If it's a really impressive, somewhat generic paradigm driven script, like they're going to hate you. Like it's got to be something that they've never seen before that blows them away.
right.
So what writers don't understand is the standard of a script to get representation and to get the meetings is much higher than some of the scripts that are being made right now. And I worked with a lot of writers who they train really hard and over time be able to write this kind of a script. And
Yeah,
then they're offered writing jobs on kind of generic paradigm driven TV shows. And they're like, what should I do? And I'm like, that's your decision. I'm here to help you have this decision. So, and sorry for talking so much, but the other thing I would also
yeah.
say
No.
that frustrated me because I'm not going to name names, but when I was in film school, I was reading popular books and taking the popular seminars. I was one of those people. But the
Yeah,
thing is I could read books or take a seminar on ballet and they could break down the structure of a ballet. They could break down what the dancers
right.
are doing, what leg muscles and how they move. And I could understand that more than most people. I can't do, if I went on stage and tried to do it, I'm going to the hospital. So the
Yeah,
thing is, I think that there's a lot of material out there that's very conceptual and it breaks down stories and it gets people to like have this understanding of what they're trying to accomplish, but they don't know how to accomplish it. And that because they're lacking in certain skills. So I'm trying to teach skills, not rules. And I'm trying to help people use these skills to create the script only they could have created that blows people away. And I think
yeah.
that's why we've had such a success rate that we've had.
Yeah, and if you go to Corey's website, CoreyMandell.net, he's got some great videos on there of successful Oscar and Emmy winning writers that swear by what Corey teaches. But Corey, you led to the perfect segue now because what I did when I was coming up with questions for you, it's one of the few times I actually wrote questions down because I had certain things I wanted to cover.
Okay.
So I'm going to break this down into 5 acts of questions
All right.
about how you teach and what
All
you
right. Let
teach
me
and the
caffeinate.
value of so yeah, here we go. So my act one, I want to sort of frame the difference of what you do.
Okay.
And here's what I wrote. You don't just teach story, you train writers almost like athletes or musicians, which you just said about ballet. You identify their dominant habits and you force them to work against their strengths and build new capacities. And at what point did you realize storytelling had to be trained and not just taught, which you just sort of covered with the ballet example?
Yeah, because I was teaching at UCLA and I was working with all these writers who had taken all the classes. They were so smart. But there was one group of writers which I call conceptual writers. And they had great concepts, they had great stories, but their characters always fell short. Their characters, they didn't seem like real people. They almost seemed like puppets who were created to serve the story. And there was no emotional resonance, and there was nothing they could do to get better at that. And then there was another group of writers that had the most amazing characters and dialogue. And when you read it, you had all these, emotional feelings, but they couldn't structure their way out of a paper bag. And they
Yeah.
knew that, but they didn't know what to do about it. And what I realized, and that's what I taught those 10 writers that became 9 writers who went on to have, or most of them went on to have success, was conceptual writers are using a certain part of their brain, and intuitive writers are primarily using a different part of your brain. And the metaphor I would use is tennis. Imagine that you are just amazing with your forehand, but you're weak with your backhand. When you play tennis, you're going to try to always use your forehand as much as possible. But when you go up against world class, competition, they're going to force you to use your backhand. They're going to force you to your weakness, and that's going to be your big liability. And when people are writing, they want to write the best scripts they can write. So knowingly or unknowingly, they write to their strengths and they hide their weaknesses. So they're playing with their forehand, so to speak. What I do is I say, for the next 2 months, we're going to take your forehand and tie it behind your back, and you're only going to be working on your backhand. I'm going to make you creatively work from the place of your weakness, but I'm going to show you a whole bunch of very specific exercises that over time you're going to get stronger and stronger with your weakness until your weakness is as strong as your strength. So if you're great with concept and stories, but your characters and dialogue aren't there, 2 months from now, your characters and dialogue are going to be as amazing, as anyone's.
Now,
Or
do you find writers resist that? Do they have a hard time accepting that, or are they pretty open to it?
well, when I'm working with someone on creative integration, the first day or two, they are so excited.
Yeah.
And then the next day or two, they're so not excited because no, and I went through this process. It's
Yeah.
really hard
Yeah.
because people are like, if I create from this side, it's not going to be any good. It's going to be embarrassingly bad. And what I have to get people to accept is, okay, let's say it is. Um, what you're going to be doing over the next, month or two is not something you're going to be showing anyone in the industry. You're not going to be creating a script that's going to launch your career.
Right.
Imagine you're a tennis player and you can't have a career because your backhand isn't strong enough. And I start drilling you on backhand and all these specific exercises. And in the beginning, you're not very good. And like if we were actually playing a tennis match, you'd be losing because but over time, if you train the right way, your backhand will keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And then when it's as strong as your forehand, now you're going to truly be dangerous as a tennis player. So the hardest thing is to get writers to realize this is training. This isn't performance writing. This isn't writing something where you're going to be judged on. So if I can get writer to buy into that and make them feel safe,
Yeah.
then it's really startling to see the difference when people come out the back end, that the end of the process from the beginning. But yeah, in the beginning, people are always like, "Oh, tie my forehand behind my back, work on my backhand. That sounds great. Let's do it." And
Yeah.
then when you start to tie, they're like, "No, no, I need my forehand." So they will always fight it at first. But most writers, if you can get them to understand, where you're headed, the promised land is your writing is going to get so much faster, stronger, and more successful. And over this next month or two, check your ego at the door. And maybe when you're working from your weak side at first, it's going to be embarrassingly terrible. That's okay.
Yeah.
No one else is going to see this. Just keep an eye on the prize of where we're headed.
So when you start working with somebody, do you read their material first, or do you sort of educate them first and then getting to their material?
I have a conversation with them and I will look at stuff. But, at this point, I've been doing this so long, within 12 seconds, I know where they are in the conceptual intuitive side.
Okay. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really, all I got to do is ask someone, hey, so, last couple scripts you wrote, what did you start with? Like, what got you initially excited to write this? And if they're talking about a concept, a world, a theme, or like, an ending or a beginning, they're a
Yeah.
conceptual writer. If they're talking
Gotcha.
about the character, and the characters or just why they had to write it. They just emotionally needed to be doing this. They're an
Yeah.
intuitive writer.
Wow. Well, okay. Well, that really leads us into Act Two, which is sort of the diagnosis as to why scripts fail. You start with writer psychology rather than story rules. So when a script fails, you see it as an access problem, not an information problem. What's usually blocking a writer from accessing depth when they already know what to do?
So I don't know if I'd use the word access. I would say process. I would say what I
Okay.
learned from teaching and myself as a writer, because I really struggled with process. Um, Process is what creates product. It's what creates outcome. And the problem is we live in a world where everyone's just focused on the outcome and the product, and people don't focus as much on the process. So I can always track successful writing to successful process and flawed writing to flawed process. So we deal with process. And what I always tell people is either you control your process or your process controls you. And writers have
Yeah.
this sort of default process of how they think about stories, create stories, write stories, evaluate, rewrite stories. And most of the time, that process is not the process that allows them to write their best material. So for me, it's all about process. And when you have the right skills and the right writing process for yourself, and just to be clear, it's not like it's not like I tell everyone your process is flawed and this is the right process. Like there's this one, no, each writer, I've worked with writers who've won Emmys and Academy Awards and showrunners, and the process that allows them to write at their highest level is not exactly or necessarily the same process as someone else or someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. Of
So I
course.
work with writers to, we do process training and I help them figure out what process is going to work best for them. And I think until someone knows their right process, they're kind of wasting their time. Real quick, my wife started running marathons and I got kind of inspired, like, oh, I want to run a marathon. And then I
Yeah.
started running and I'm like, I'm really slow and I don't run very far and I get really tired. So I have a friend who's like a great sports doctor or whatever.
Yeah.
There, and so I went, hey, what should I work on first? Should I work on endurance or speed? And he said neither. He said you got to work on your process. You got to work on your stride. You got to work on how your foot. You got to work on your physical process because until you get that right, you're not going to get much speed or much endurance. So just like a golfer, like they start with their swing and they break down all the issues with their swing. So what I really want to do is help writers evolve, figure out and evolve their strongest process because that's the foundation that they're going to have all their future success on.
Well, yeah. So you're really training the writer, not the script. So do you
Yeah.
think that when a writer finds somebody to consult on a script, are they really resolving anything or solving any problems if they're just fixing the script and not the writer?
Well, I mean, it depends. So if someone, I do consultations mainly for like my former students who are now working writers. But if
Yeah.
someone reaches out to me, it's really the question is, what's more important to you right now to have a better script or become a better writer to be able to write a lifetime
Right.
of better scripts. Now, sometimes people's like, look, I have this opportunity to get this script to this person, or I've been hired and I got to turn. Sometimes people have very valid reasons for
Yeah.
right now, I want this script to be improved. I think most people, the smarter choice is to say, I'd rather become a stronger writer so that I can write stronger scripts. But I do
Yeah.
think there are situations where you just got to get this script as strong as possible.
And what have you found is the leading resistance that writers have? What's the number one resistance that you see writers having in changing and fixing their problem?
That's a hard one for me to answer because I think I could have answered that much easier 10 years ago. I think doing this
Yeah.
as long as I have done it, I think I've figured out ways of working with writers that kind of usually disarm that. I mean, so the one of the big things that I do that I think is unique is one of the things I learned as a writer and as a teacher is that when you write a script, you see a movie or a TV show in your head and you experience it. And you give the other script, you give your script to other people to read, and then they give you feedback. Here's what's working, here's not, here's a suggestion. They're basing their feedback on the movie or TV show that's in their head. And often is very different.
Yeah.
And so the feedback is counterproductive or destructive because they're giving you feedback on actually what they're seeing, but not what you're seeing. And so the first thing I do is help writers see. I want to, first thing I do talk to writers. I want to know after I've read their script, what they see, like how they see the characters in the story and what they're excited about and what they love and what movie or TV show plays in their head. And then I'm going to help them see what parts of that are not coming off the page, what parts of that
Right.
aren't playing. And so the first step is before we even try to fix anything, you've got to get the script in the place where when people read it, they can finally fully see what you see and experience what you experience. Because before you get there, any feedback you get is a waste of time and you're just going to chase your tail. And I have writers come to me and they're like, I've hired 5 different people and they've told me 5 different things and I don't know what's going on because
Right.
most people are reacting to what they think what they see. The other thing
Yeah.
that I really am adamant against is, and I'm sure this isn't true of all, but I know a lot of the people that do feedback, they're also not only are they giving feedback on what they think you wrote, but they're also giving you feedback on what they would when they say, here's how to make it better. What they're really saying is, if I was writing this, here's how I would make it better. And
Yeah.
I don't, at the risk of being disrespectful, it's like, well, if your instincts are so great, how come you're not selling scripts? How come you're not working
Right.
as a writer? And what I really try to do, and this is really sacredly important to me, is I really want to know what the writers, why are you writing this? Why does this matter to you? What outcome do you want? And and
So
I
you need to teach them to trust their intuition. You need to trust they need to learn to trust that they know what's best for the story.
Oh, hold on. That's tricky. But just to finish my thought, what I would say is
Yeah.
what I'm now want to do is I'm going to support your vision, what you want. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Like I have writer instincts. I'm like, ooh, if I had that concept, here's what I would do with it. So what? That's irrelevant. What is it that you want to be doing with this? Trusting your instincts is an interesting one. When I was in film school, I had a teacher once say, if you want to succeed as a writer, you got to trust your instincts, trust your instincts. And I was like, oh, that's really smart. And I wrote it down. I'm like, if I'm ever a teacher, I'm going to say that. And then I was a
Yeah.
teacher and I'd walk around saying, if you want to succeed as a writer, trust your instincts, trust it. People would write it down. Over time, I realized that's kind of not that smart. What
Yeah.
I've learned is, no, well, here's what I've learned that we have instincts that work in our favor and we have instincts that work against us. And what you have to do is understand that there's different instincts. And you have to be able to distinguish between the instincts that are working in your favor that you want to listen to and the other instincts that often come from fear that are actually working against you. So I think it's really tricky to say trust your instincts. I would say do the work to figure out where your instincts are coming from and be able to
Okay.
distinguish between the instincts you want to listen to and the instincts you don't want to listen to.
And so what instincts, I'm working on something right now. I'm working on a book. And the way I'm writing it now is that whatever comes to my mind is what I'm putting down.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking twice about. Sometimes I go, I shouldn't put this because it's embarrassing, or I shouldn't say that but I don't care.
Right.
Right now, my instinct says just put it all down. Where
Yep.
do you know where to cut it though? I mean, how do you know what's
Yeah.
going to work and what's not going to work?
Well, I think you're being smart because I think right now here's the thing, and I know what I'm talking about because what I'm about to say was the one thing I never was able to really overcome as a screenwriter, and it really
Yeah.
was part of what made it so much unhealthy and harder than it had to be. So I know of what I speak. So there are people that say you can create or you can evaluate what you're creating, but you can't do both at the same time. And I know for a fact they're wrong because I did that. I would be writing, looking over my shoulder in real time and judging it. It's a terrible way to do it
Yeah.
because you're not creating to the best of your ability and you're not evaluating to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
So what I would say is I love what Pat Conroy said on this, the novelist, write like you're in love, edit like you're in charge. So I
Ah,
think right now you just write down everything that you want to write down, no
yeah,
filter, no censor. But what I would, if you're working with me, what I would advise is this is not your first draft.
yeah,
This is the Derek draft. So this is just Derek getting everything down that he wants to get down. Let it go long, let it be unwieldy. Just this is your time to just write down everything. And then you're going to
yeah.
put it away and work on something else for a period of time so you're not thinking, processing this. And then when you come back to this, I would say get a marker, like a highlighter and read through it. And anything that you read, a big point, a small point, a word, whatever, big or small, that just you go, oh, this is important. Like, this is something that is really important to me. You mark it. And so you're right now just like surveying all these options. And then you go
Yeah.
through with some distance and you start seeing what of all of this means the most to you. Then you comes the work of editing like you're in charge. Then it becomes structuring it and figuring out how to tie things together, and maybe some of the stuff that really is important to you isn't going to be there because you have to start now thinking about the holistic structure. But but I think you're being really smart right now, which is don't be doing any of that. Just be creating everything that you want to say, and then later on you'll edit like you're in charge.
Yeah, I'm just sort of when I'm writing, I'm in the moment and that's what I'm putting down. And
That's
then
great.
I editing to me, it's much easier to go back and edit it than to try to add to it.
Yeah.
So as a professional writer though, like with you, whether yourself personally or people you deal with, what do you find is the hardest thing for them to unlearn, that maybe they've got some bad habits or they were approaching it the wrong way?
Um, I think the hardest thing to unlearn again is that, you know, um, writers use a certain part of their brain, the conceptual or the intuitive. And,
Yeah,
you know, the conceptual part of the brain has certain strengths and certain weaknesses. So, like writers who like are really smart, but they can't create strong characters, and they go, "Yeah, I'm no good with characters and dialogue." It's like they're using the wrong tool. Like they're trying to drink a milkshake with a hammer. And like,
yeah.
intuitive writers, like I can't do story or structure because they're trying to pound nails with a drinking straw. So it's really learning how to turn off that dominant part of your writing process and learning how to strengthen and integrate the weaker part. That's the thing that I think is the hardest. And then, but when someone does that, it's transformative. It is literally. I love getting the calls or the emails from people saying my agent read it, my manager, my wife, my husband, my writing group, and they said, "Hey, I love you, but you don't write characters this good, or your stories like who wrote someone co-wrote this because you don't
Yeah.
write like this." I love those stories.
Now, is there, can a writer be technically brilliant? They can get the structure down to the T,
Yep.
but they just can't reach in and get that
Yeah,
intuitive
that's
part.
that's your classic conceptual writer. And the
Yeah,
conceptual writer, they're working from more of an intellectual place and they're not working from an emotional place. So when you read a script like that, exactly as you said, like it's hitting all the beats, it's structured really smart, but it's
right.
not interesting to read because you're not feeling anything when you read it because the writer wasn't really feeling much when they wrote it, or they don't know how to transfer their emotion off the page to you. That's what intuitive training does. So yeah, you just eloquently describe what a conceptual writer does.
Now, have you dealt with writers that they just can't break through? Or is there
Um,
always some level of breakthrough that at least it gets them open to it?
so in all my years, I mean, there's certainly been conceptual writers who keep resisting, and at some point they just say, "I'm not going to do this anymore," and they stop.
Yeah,
So there's that. In terms of someone who like never gave up but didn't get there, I could literally only think of one person,
yeah,
and we had a candid conversation. And they eventually said, I think I need to go back to my psychiatrist. I think this person had, they had an abnormal brain. They had some deep seated issues. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't get into that. I'm not
right.
so, but that was just one person. And I think that one person, in their normal life, they had no access to their emotions. So
Yeah,
yeah, if I mean, most conceptual writers, they obviously, I would say, have you ever fallen in love? Have you ever gotten your heart broken? Have you ever felt this? Have you ever felt extreme joy? Have you ever felt extreme sadness at any time in your life? And if they say yes, I'm like, you can do this. You can do this work.
Yeah.
As long as you are able to feel strong emotions, you can do this work. And I've only had one person, but
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with their brain.
Well, I really want people to reach out to you because I think what you teach is so far above and beyond what most people do. And I was looking at your website, and you got some great classes on there. Can I touch on some of the classes a bit so you can just talk about them a
Sure,
little bit?
sure, sure.
So, for example, you have a class called Successful Script Launch,
Yeah.
and so tell us a little bit about that.
So So just to be clear, I have three workshop series where I'm working with writers, reading their stuff interactively. And then and I can't get everything that I want to teach into those three workshops. They're really dense with stuff. So I've created supplemental training, which is like on-demand training. And
Yeah.
that's one of them. So this is not an interactive. This is like an on-demand recorded. But that is all about yeah, I mean, what a lot of people don't necessarily realize is, and I was a studio reader. So as a studio reader, when I was in film school, you were trained, read the first couple of scenes and stop. And do you have to keep reading? Do you feel like you have to keep reading? And if the answer is no, don't keep reading on the script. And 99% of scripts are passed on after the first two scenes. So, writers will be like,
Wow.
my script wasn't strong. Well, no one really read it. Like the first two scenes just have, and so that on-demand content is some techniques and tools for getting those first two scenes to have
Yeah.
a fighting chance of having someone want to keep reading.
And then on the flip side of it, you talk about nailing your ending. I mean, how many scripts did you read that you read the whole script and it was unbelievable, and then the ending just blew it?
Well, the way I would answer that is, you know, most scripts fail in the beginning. And let's say 10% of scripts succeed in the beginning. Most of those scripts fail in the middle. Um, of the scripts that succeed in the beginning and the middle, I actually think I think a fair amount of them succeed at the ending, but some don't. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm always teaching writers like, don't like, A, learn how to write the beginning and make sure you can do that. Then the middle. I think the middle is where so many scripts go to die. It's the middle where things unravel, things start flatlining, de-escalating, stagnating, treading water,
And
suddenly being
why?
just because writers don't know. One of the key tools that I teach is escalations, which is so you're reading a script, right, Derek? And
Yeah.
like you love the characters, you love the concept, you love the world. And you read it and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. These characters are going to try to accomplish this, and I'm really invested in seeing how this works out. And it looks like it's going to be really hard. Great. And you're reading, you're reading. But over time, it gets easier for the character. You get less interested. Or over time, it kind of stays the same level of it. But if it keeps getting harder and harder and harder, that's what keeps you reading. Those are escalations. And this is a great example of why I think that so many people in the industry are telling people don't read these books or take a lot of these classes is what they do with the formula or the paradigm is they will
Yeah.
teach you at the midpoint, this is the whatever, this is the all is lost moment or whatever. And then at this page, so they're teaching you when to have those escalations and where and what those escalations should be. And as an Academy Award winning producer recently told my class, if you're listening to anyone, including Corey, if you're listening to anyone tell you when your escalation should be and what they should be, you're not writing and you're not a real writer. What real writers do is they don't listen to anybody. They listen to their story. Your story will tell you when you need escalations, and then they'll listen to their characters to know how to escalate. So the escalations come from character. So like I'll work with writers and based on their characters, they're going to have very organically specific escalations that
Yeah.
wouldn't be the same. So to basically tell everyone you must escalate at this page and here's how you escalate, it's just ridiculous. You have to
It's
again,
artificial. It's not authentic.
exactly. So because writers don't know how to keep escalating, their middles fall apart. And
Yeah.
writers are always like, oh, the middle of the scripts is so hard. It's like, no, it's not hard if you know how to escalate. If you don't know how to escalate, yeah, it's really hard. So that's one of like the core skills that I teach writers early on in the first workshop, how to escalate and how to escalate from character.
And where do you see TV and film going now? I mean, they always say don't follow the trends.
Yeah.
Right, interesting. Where do you see TV going now? What do you think is the best market for writers to look at when they're writing?
You mean in terms of market, what do you mean?
As far as the market, if I've got a TV series
Yeah.
but let's say it's a period piece based in the
Yeah.
60s, is that a sellable concept, or does it really come down to how it's executed?
I respectfully think it's the wrong question. And I get that that's how I thought when I was starting out. But I was
Yeah,
really lucky to have a producer like kind of set me straight. So I think really um, the writers that I train who I see go on to have success, they get it, which is you're not writing something to sell it. What you're writing is to have a career. Now, how do you get a career? First off, it's going to be really important to get representation because when a manager or agent, and it'll probably be a manager at first,
yeah,
what they can give you, which you need and you can't have on your own, is credibility. A manager can call people and say, "Hey, I got this writer. You never heard of them. They're amazing. You need like Ridley Scott's company read my script, decide if they wanted me to come in for a pitch. The
yeah,
only reason they read my script is because Diane Cairns at ICM said, "Hey, I found you, Callie Corey. I found you the next Callie Corey." I don't know
yeah,
exactly what she said, whatever she said, but she said you need to read the script. They're going to read the script. So it is going to be so incredibly difficult without having representation. Now, what agents and managers are looking for, and this might be counterintuitive, is they're not looking for a script that they can sell. And I know that sounds strange because agents and managers get, 10% or whatever of,
yeah,
but here's the thing. I'm friends with a lot of agents. I'm friends with, okay, they're not excited about a script sale. So let's say you have this sellable script, they sign you, they go out and they sell the script for 200 grand. And maybe you're super excited, depending on what your financial situation is. They
yeah.
just got 20 grand. It's not important to them, 20 grand. What they want is 10% of a very long, successful career. So
Longevity, sure.
my last agent, he represented me. He also represented Aaron Sorkin, and he represented J.K. Rowling's. Now,
Yeah,
I mean, 10% of Aaron Sorkin's career is worth a million Corey Mandells, like a
yeah,
million of these, right? So what they want is assign someone who has the potential to be the next Genji Cohen or the next Tina Fey or the next, whoever.
yeah.
And so they're looking for someone that can write a script that is unique and authentic and exciting and not written to the marketplace. It's just written because the writer had to write this. It's basically a show off script of like, look what
Right.
I can do. I've known writers who've broken the business writing scripts that couldn't sell, like The Muppet Man, which starts off with like Kermit having an incredibly inappropriate sexual conversation with Miss Piggy.
Yeah,
Now, you're never going to get the rights to the Hansons, right? Never, ever could
yeah.
sell this. But when you read this, you go, oh my God, this should be a
This,
movie. This is amazing writing sample. And everyone in town wanted to meet with him and everyone wanted to work with him. And now, if you get everyone wanting to work with you, you're going to get hired. Or you could sell a pitch. So, you're in a room with someone like, I love your crazy sense of humor and this and
yeah,
that. Obviously, no one's buying your Muppet movie, but do you have any ideas that you want to pitch? Or we're looking, I've had this happen to me. We're looking for something like this and this. Do you have
yeah.
something? I'm like, I didn't, but I said, I'm working on something just like that. Can I come in a week and pitch it to you? Like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I go work up something and I go in. But now think about it. You're pitching a project that they want to buy. So what you're trying to do is write a script. You should not be thinking about marketplace. Like I worked with a writer, it was about 2 years ago now, and she wrote this script. It was the most haunting script I read about how a single rape devastated 3 generations of Honduran women.
Wow.
That script, as a sample, got her first writing job for Pixar. Now,
Wow.
Pixar's not doing a rape movie, right?
Yeah,
But
rape
they
movie. Yeah,
loved her writing, and and when they're like, I want to take your secret sauce, and I wonder what it would look like if we could apply it to the Pixar paradigm. So now, when she's getting paid, she's absolutely writing to the Pixar
yeah,
paradigm and the character. Yeah, obviously, now you're getting paid, you do that. I worked last year with a writer who wrote a TV script that I think would have cost $50 million to shoot the pilot. Like it was just prohibitively expensive.
yeah,
And everyone would say, don't do that. And it's like, this is the script that he had to write, and he got representation and he got a job off it. Or people, so first of all, when you're listening to people say, this is what the marketplace is looking for, and this is what they're not looking for, I say ignore it because they don't know what they're talking about. Because first off, the information they're giving is in the past. This
yeah,
thing, and also here's the reality, and agents will tell you this. What is the industry looking for today or tomorrow? They don't know. They'll know it when they see it.
yeah,
So, and here's the other thing. Let's say you had a crystal ball and you're like, well, 2 months from now, everyone's going to be looking for a Stranger Things type script. And you had advanced knowledge and you wrote that script. It doesn't, when they're looking for that, there's going to be a million scripts submitted like that. What you want to do is be a monopoly. This is the key. Agents want monopolies, not commodities. So it's something that I never learned to do, and that's why my career had a limit, which is I wrote in a way where you could hire me and I could rewrite a script and I could kind of rewrite it in any voice you needed and I could do a really great job with it, but other writers could do it as well.
right.
I'm a commodity. But as like my agent said, if you want an Aaron Sorkin project, there's only one person you can hire, or a Tina
Yeah,
Fey, or whoever, Greta Gerwig. So what they want is a writer who can be a monopoly. So they want writers who can write really unique, amazing scripts. Now, they're going to try to sell that script, and if you're really lucky, you can sell it and you can be the next Callie Corey. But if you can't, you're going to get a lot of people wanting to work with you, and you could be like me, where you used to sell a pitch to Ridley Scott, and he almost made the movie, and if he did, it would have been life changing. And
yeah,
he didn't make it, but he on the front page of Variety, he talked me up in the script, and that's got me writing jobs for 10 or 11 years. So the point is, I respectfully say, you want to write two scripts that are just amazing and unique without thinking about the marketplace. And the reason two scripts is most of the best agents or managers won't sign you off one script. They want to see two scripts to make sure you have consistency or not a one trick pony. And then your third script, maybe you do start thinking about taking your voice and maybe trying to figure out a
right.
genre to make it marketable, and definitely have at least one or two pitches. And that is your package before you even try to introduce yourself to the industry. And most writers won't do that. They get what they think is a really great script and they're off and running. I know agents and managers. I know how they think. I would strongly suggest if someone's in this for the long run and they want to make their living as a writer, you want to have at least two unique, amazing scripts. Don't think about the marketplace. Then maybe one script where you do think a little bit, not like about what people are buying, but like, how can I take my secret sauce and maybe make it a little bit more commercial and have one or two pitches? Because right now, as you probably know, most projects aren't being sold as a script. They're being sold as a pitch. So, last year, a lot of my writers launched careers and some of them sold scripts, but most of them had a package of scripts that got them meetings and relationships where they could sell a pitch.
Which is
So
everything.
it's everything. And so that's the advice I would give. And don't listen to anyone who says this is what the industry is looking for, because I'll guarantee you it's out of date. And even if it's not
Yeah,
out of date, like let's say this person actually knows that today this is what everyone's buying, great. Go start writing that script. And by the time you get to page 5, they're looking for something else because they've already bought those scripts.
yeah,
So trying to write to the marketplace is a fool's errand. And what's heartbreaking about it is writers aren't writing from their heart.
yeah,
And the last thing I'll
yeah,
say right now in terms of the future, um, I've been meeting with a lot of managers and agents, like trying to get a handle on things. Right now, we're in a big transitional period. I think things are really going to start to get really good in 2026 and even better in 2027. And the word I keep hearing is authentic, that the audiences are so tired of the same old, same old. I mean, you look at movies this year, and this is a trend that started a couple of years ago, because as you know, the movies that are coming out now, they were started a year or two ago,
Right.
there are more original movies, unique movies, non-formulaic, non-comic book movies than in a long time. Next year is going to be even more. I think this is one of the best years. 2025, last year was one of the best years for movies, and we're starting to
Yeah.
see that in what they're buying for TV. So they're looking for, this is important and to understand, which is back in the 90s and into the year 2000, when they were making movies and TV shows, they're trying to make movies or TV shows that got the most number of people to go. Like, you have a movie, you open it all over the country, and you want, tens of millions of people to go, or a TV show, you
Right.
want the big. That's all changed now. Now we're not broadcasting, we're narrowcasting. So now, like, if you think about the subscription services, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, they're not trying to create stuff that appeals to as many people as possible. They're they want you to keep paying that monthly subscription fee. So they need some stuff, some original content that
Yeah.
you love, that's unique, that you can't get anywhere else. And so, a perfect example is the TV show Girls. Girls, I don't think it ever really broke a million. I think it had about 900,000 viewers. 10 years earlier, 900,000 viewers, it would have been canceled before the first, right? But,
Yeah.
but Girls was the new paradigm, because what they now track is follow through. They don't care the number of people, but of those 900,000, what percent of them watch every episode? And it was in the 90%. Think about it. 900,000 people are going to keep paying for HBO because they got to watch the
Yeah.
show. And then HBO has
Yeah.
Sopranos or some other show, and you're playing the different constituencies. I mean, look at Netflix. Like, just three of their recent movies: Frankenstein, House of Dynamite, and Train Dreams. I guarantee most people, if they saw all three of those movies, they didn't like all three of those movies, but they really liked one of them.
Yeah.
And that's the key, is they don't need everyone, but they just need, if there's a group of people like, oh, I love Train Dreams and those kind of movies, and I can only get it here, they're going to pay for it. Or if Frankenstein, and so what's really cool, I think what's really cool for writers now is you get to kind of figure out what your jam is and what your passion is and write the hell out of it. And it doesn't have to have a wide audience. It just has to have a group of people who love it. So what's important to understand is the game used to be, when I was first coming down here, excuse me, you're trying to write stuff that everyone will like and won't offend anybody. Nowadays, they want stuff that offends a lot of people, because
Yeah.
not that they want to offend people, but if you write something that some people are going to love, like Fleabag, and I'm one,
Yeah.
there are people who are like, I'll pay whatever amount of money for season three, like but there are a lot of people who are like, it's filthy, it's
Yeah.
dirty, I didn't care about, and they hate it. And then those people might love something that to me maybe isn't my cup of tea. And they're like, it's all good, because we want the Fleabag audience, we want the this audience, we want the that audience. And so people now get to write what they really want to be writing. That wasn't so true when I was breaking in the business. So it's really an amazing time to be a writer. The demand for writers that can do this exceeds the supply. Now,
Oh, wow.
if you're online getting your news, or in parties, you're going to hear all these writers say how hard it is, how impossible it is. Well, first of all, those aren't the working writers. They're not out online complaining. But the reality is, very few people can write like that. And if you can write like that, the industry is looking for you. The industry is looking for you. So it's becoming that needle in the haystack. And that's the good news for writers. If they're willing to invest the time and energy to train themselves to try to write like that, just know that the industry is waiting for you and needs you.
Corey Mandel, you're absolutely brilliant. I
Nah,
love everything you
nah.
said. But what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Go to CoreyMandel.net and or you can email my assistant Brooke at assistant@CoreyMandel.net.
Great. We'll put that all up on the screen. Uh, you got to talk to Corey. I mean, I'm not even writing a screenplay. I want to hire Corey, and I don't know
Yeah.
why, because somehow I think I'm going to write a great screenplay if I work with Corey. Corey, it's always a pleasure seeing you. You always have amazing information, amazing insight, and I really appreciate, and I'm sure everybody really appreciates everything you've done here.
Thank you, Derek. I love being here and thank you for the opportunity to come in and blabber.
Okay. For Corey Mandel, I'm Derek Christopher. This has been the Pulse of Story. We will see you next time.